She is Community Conversation is presented by Momentum Professional Strategy Partners, their Elevate Black Wellness Initiative, and partners Vocal Washington and Therapy Fund Foundation. It is also available in collaboration with the Washington State Department of Health through a grant made from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The community conversation opens with the communications director from Momentum Professional Strategy Partners, Christian Bell, welcoming everyone into the program.
Here today, we're so excited to have you here. So my name is Christian Bell. I am the Director of Communications for Momentum Professional Strategy Partners. And I am so excited to be here with you all today, hosting this event with our Elevate Black Wellness Initiative, alongside our incredible partners, Vocal Washington and Therapy Fund Foundation. So thank you for joining us, closing out Women's History Month with our She Is community conversation. So we'll go ahead and get started with our community agreements. Our first community agreement is to show love. If there is something that is said or done that resonates with you, we encourage you to use the chat have the reaction buttons. Give us a heart, a smiley face, or something, but just express your thoughts and show love to the incredible speakers today. Our next agreement is to be respectful. In the words of the incredible singer Mary J. Blige, there will be no hateration, holleration in the Zoom meeting today. So we ask you to please keep your microphones muted during the presentations. Inflammatory remarks will not be tolerated, and any inappropriate comments will be removed. Lastly, as you're in this space, we encourage you to enjoy the program. There'll be an opportunity at the end for you to take our community survey, as well as listen to some music. So just join in with us and enjoy yourselves. Now we'll get into our agenda. So before we start our panel and all those exciting things, I will cover a few words on our ASL interpretation. So thank you so much to Billy and Vern for coming out and doing our ASL for today. We will also go over our land and labor acknowledgements, and that will be given by our executive assistant for Momentum, Elise Paget. Afterwards, we will then have our introduction of our incredible co-hosts, and then we'll move into our fabulous moderator and panel introductions. I want you all to know this program that we have planned for you. You are going to hear from some powerful, wonderful Black women in areas of our state. We're going to engage in some affirmations. We're going to share some resources, and we're also going to talk about opportunities for community and have you participate again in that survey so that we can talk about ways that we can elevate Black wellness. So I just thank you all so much. It's going to be a wonderful program today. So with our ASL interpretation, we are working towards making sure that everyone can enjoy our program today. So again, we have our incredible ASL interpreters. And I'll talk a little bit about the closed captioning and how you can access that. So I hope some of these things are familiar for you. We have our mute, unmute button, our video on and off, our participant side panel. You can see the chat button, but to enable that closed captioning, we encourage you to select the closed caption button. To view those live captions, you'll click on the menu arrow next to the closed caption button. And then you will choose showing the subtitles, a full transcript, or you can do both. You'll also adjust the size of the captions if you wish, and you can hide subtitles if you do not want to see the text. I will now turn it over to Elise Paget, who will give our land and labor acknowledgements. And again, I thank you. Enjoy our program today.
Thanks, Christian. We would like to take time to express our gratitude to the 29 federally recognized tribes throughout Washington state. We would also like to recognize the Duwamish, Wanapum, and Chinook tribes who are not recognized by the U.S. federal government but have a long history in Washington state. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather and work is the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples who have stewarded and called this land home for thousands of years, and express our gratitude for their custodianship of the land, waters, and resources that sustain us all. We are committed to learning from and supporting their ongoing struggles for sovereignty and fostering meaningful relationships based on respect, reciprocity, and mutual understanding. We also acknowledge the significant contributions and resilience of Black and African American people in shaping the history, culture, and labor force of Washington state. From the early days of exploration to the present, they have played a vital role in building communities, advocating for justice, and enriching our diverse society. We recognize the labor of Black and African American people, both free and enslaved, who labored on the land, in industries, and within institutions. Their contributions and sacrifices have been instrumental in shaping the growth and prosperity of this region. We commit ourselves to amplifying Black and African American voices, stories, and experiences, and to fostering an environment of equity, inclusion, and justice. We strive to learn from the past, engage in honest dialogue, and work towards dismantling systemic barriers that have perpetuated inequality. As we move forward, let us honor the land, labor, and cultural heritages of Black and African Americans in Washington state, and actively support the ongoing fight for equity and justice. Together, we can create a more inclusive and equitable future for all. This work is made possible in part by the Washington State Department of Health through a grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The grant funding and partnership has been the cornerstone of our endeavors, allowing us to empower communities, champion this health-focused initiative, and make tangible differences where it matters most. Thank you. I'd like to pass it over to Keith Blocker to introduce Momentum Professional Strategy Partners and a little bit more about Elevate Black Wellness.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Blocker. I'm the CEO of Momentum Professional Strategy Partners, and I'm honored to be the representative for Elevate Black Wellness, which is a partnership between Momentum Professional Strategy Partners and the Department of Health. When I think about why this work is important, it's because for generations, the Black community has suffered from a great deal of disparities as it relates to our own health and wellness. So this initiative was designed to, one, promote, acknowledge the disparities, encourage our Black community members to focus on their own health and wellness, which means their physical wellness, their spiritual wellness, financial wellness, and all aspects of wellness. In addition to that, our work encompasses advocating for the Black community to address systemic issues that impact our communities. When we think about how wellness has been impacted from institutions, we look at racial disparities, we look at economic disparities, we look at disparities that have been created by all institutions that have negative impacts on the Black community, and we focus and advocate and engage other organizations to address those issues. We wanted to be intentional about this work when we think about the impact of COVID-19 and the disparities that were created from the pandemic, we wanted to make sure that we focused on not just the Black community as a monolith. We wanted to break down the Black community and look at who suffers the most, even within the Black community. There are smaller communities. For example, people who have live with disabilities, people who live in poverty, people who are part of the elderly community, and people who are identified as young people, as well as the LGBTQIA community. So we wanted to make sure that we provided information, provided inspiration, and also advocacy when it comes to engaging institutions that impact the Black community. So I just wanted to thank everyone who's come out this afternoon to participate in this very important dialogue, highlighting and showcasing Black women talent that that also advocates for the Black community and practices their own specialties as it relates to their own wellness. So I'm excited to hear what they all have to offer today and the insights that they will provide. And I'm sure you'll be inspired as well. So next, I want to introduce Houston, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Therapy Fund Foundation.
Thank you very, very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Houston Adair. I am a U.S. Naval vet. I am a peer support specialist focusing around single fatherhood or fatherhood in general. I am also a mental health advocate for the Therapy Fund Foundation, where we work hard at eliminating barriers to Black healing, providing mental health support in the form of culturally responsive therapists, mental health supportive groups, as well as all other forms of health when it comes to the BIPOC Black diaspora. I am thoroughly happy to be a part of this organization. I am genuinely an advocate for mental health, as I am also a recipient of mental health services. I, like many, faced a lot of traumatic hardships in my life, and thanks to being open to mental health services and being fortunate enough to be paired with good mental health clinicians, I was able to grasp tools and gain healing to overcome all that I've dealt with thus far. And trust me, it is an ever changing, ever continuing effort on everyone's behalf. I am happy to be here with you all, and I am looking forward to this dialogue. I'd like to take this opportunity to pass the microphone to Deontay Demp.
Thank you so much, my brother Houston. And hello, everyone. My name is Deontay Damper. I'm the community organizer for Vocal Washington. That is Voices of Community Activists and Leaders Washington, a grassroots organization that builds power tries to build political power to community members that are impacted by HIV, substance use, homelessness, and community members that use substances. Throughout our efforts, we have found great partners in momentum in the Therapy Fund to bring these community conversations. And it didn't take me, it didn't take myself and Christian Bell too long to come up with this event. When we talk about who she is, we have been dealing with so much misogyny in community. And not just misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, etc., and different policies that are been coming down the turnpike to tell women what to do with their bodies, their minds, and their spirit. And above all else, has been impacting Black women. This event, and I'm saying it an event because we are all going to be working together because these women on this panel are fire. that will give you a clear definition of who she is and what we can do to support these women that are in these boardrooms advocating for policy change and representation. And above all else, inclusivity. These Black women are strong and come from a legacy of advocacy and leadership. On a personal note, each of these women I have watched over the years have impacted me in so many ways. So on the behalf of Black men, I say thank you. On behalf of Black men, I say I'm ready to hear you and continue to lift you up in wherever area we can. With that being said, if you want more information about Vocal Washington, I can put some information in the chat where you can find us. I'm now going to pass the mic to our facilitator for this event and producer for this event. She needs no introduction to community. She is a part of an Emmy Award-winning channel called Converge Media and hosts her own show, The Day with Trey, which you can catch weekdays on Converge Media at 11 a.m. She's my sister friend, and she is always dressed to impress. The Capricorn of all Capricorns, Trey Holiday.
Oh, Deontay, thank you so much. And I want to thank all of the partners for making this happen. He gave me such a nice introduction, but y'all, I'm looking forward to continuing to uplift stories in media through the day with Trey as a producer and host there. That's what it's all about. It's about uplifting, inspiring, impactful stories that are really geared to try to shake up folks from the apathy that we have been experiencing as we become more and more individualized as a society. So I am grateful that I am here and that I get that pleasure of introducing this phenomenal panel that you all will be hearing from shortly. So with that, first up, there it is. We have Christina Blocker, founder and CEO of Momentum Professional Strategy Partners, which is a full-service DEIA consulting firm. Welcome, Christina. Glad you can join us.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be in community with you all today.
Absolutely. Up next, KD Hall, phenomenal, acclaimed communicator, storyteller, filmmaker, professor, and leadership advocate for women and girls with the KD Hall Foundation, and also Conversations with KD on King 5, y'all. What's up, KD?
What's up, Trey? Thank you so much. So grateful to be here today.
Great to have you with us. Next, we have Miss Ashley McGirt Adair, the founder and president of the Therapy Fund Foundation, also a psychotherapist, TEDx international speaker, and author who's been featured on Forbes, MSNBC, The Young Turks, OWN, Bravo, and more. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Great to have you here. Next, we have Jalen Scott, serving as the executive director of the Lavender Rights Project, which is a project that is Black trans advocacy movement building organization based in Seattle. Welcome, Jalen.
It's so good to be with you.
Yes, absolutely. And last but definitely not least, Miss Malika Lamont, a dedicated professional with over 2 decades of experience addressing social determinants of health, the director for Vocal WA, and the Washington lead technical support director at PDA. Welcome, Miss Malika. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm excited to dive in a bit more to this discussion, y'all. And I want to start with some reflections here on experiences during the pandemic. What does it mean to you to authentically embody who she is amidst the challenges that misogyny, racism, and the global health crisis bring to us all? I'm going to start with you, Miss Christina, and then I'll pass it around to everyone to answer.
First, thank you so much for that question, Trey. It's such a beautiful question because who she is looks different for everybody. I know for me during the pandemic, I learned to give myself grace. Giving myself grace was who she was and who she continues to be. Whether that was within my business, having to navigate, having two young kids that would show up on calls, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get anxious about that. Here are my coworkers. That's what I would tell my clients. Or if it was just giving myself grace when family members were sick with COVID and I was a little anxious, right? I think grace and balance are the two things that help me navigate through the racism that we see and continue to see, right? Through the misogyny that exists and is still very strong. Creating that space for myself, giving grace to myself when I need to check out, giving grace to myself when I need to check in with folks, but I'm still exhausted, I think has helped me understand and continue to uncover who I am and who she continues to be.
Thank you so much for that. Up next, Jalen Scott, how have you been dealing with that during the pandemic? We saw kind of some rises of certain things. Tell us how you got through.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. It is a beautiful question. And I think that, one of the rises I will add is the rise in transphobia, transmisogynoir to that list, right? Which is a mix of misogyny, racism, and a number of other things. And I think there, as we were watching deaths of our loved ones from COVID-19, but also watching an increase in violence in our own communities and our own community, it really put like death front and center for me. And for me, the embodiment of she is was really pulling from those ancestors, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great greats, right, who faced and looked at deaths, square in the eye, who read Revelations and sang from it, who are not afraid to talk about it. And it seems somewhat almost depressing to focus on death, but that wasn't it. There was something about looking at it squarely in the eye that allowed them to really appreciate the moment, this present moment, its beauty, and to create and be as bold as they can in this moment. And I think that got me through, and it kept me from not being afraid and to stand in my boldness and my womanhood there.
Oh, thank you so much. Ashley McGurta Dare, how did you navigate some of these challenges that we experienced during this time?
It's been an interesting, complex journey of really just navigating who she is. I really echo all of the things that have already been shared. I did hospice therapy for a number of years, so I'm a person who's been surrounded by death for a very long time. I sat at the bedside and I would watch individuals take their last breath, and then watching how that transition occurred amidst a pandemic really impacted and changed my overall well-being and inspired a lot of the work that I do, and really pushed me forward to work toward eliminating barriers to healing Black communities, especially Black women, Black bodies. And when you're looking at who she is in a complex system, when we're dealing with all the isms, racism, a genocide, all of these things, I think it's really important to really just be self-aware and re-embrace wellness and what that looks like. And I'm not talking about the Instagram fluffy self-care stuff. I'm talking about true wellness. And sometimes that means she don't got the energy to do it. And really going back to the grace that Christina shared, and just having grace for yourself and knowing that she is a person who is existing in a complex society, a complex world, who doesn't necessarily always have the answers. And oftentimes as women, even more so as Black women, we have to have the answers. I feel like a Black woman is literally going to save the world. And what does that look like to have that on our shoulders, and knowing that we carry this responsibility to fix all of these issues that have been in place since longer than I've been alive. And when you look at all of the organizations that have come about, many of them are founded by Black women. And so she is everything. She is the person I am. She is the person I'm not. And the pandemic has really allowed me to sit in who I am and learn more about myself, learn more about other women. I'm extremely blessed and honored to be surrounded by so many amazing women and men too, but this is our month, this is our time to talk about us. So I really just want to share that, and I think that's who she is. She's so many different things, and we have to allow women to be that and know that sometimes it looks like a creator, sometimes it looks like I'm just on my couch cuddled up while watching Netflix or whatever it is, and just existing and doing the thing that brings me joy, and giving space for women to do that and not have to constantly fix or create or be all things to all people. But that's who I think she is, and what that looks like in the midst of a global health crisis and a genocide, dealing with exacerbated racial stressors and all of the things that we have to deal with as women and as people in general.
Wow, y'all are giving some powerful gems with this one right here. Thank you so much, Ashley. Uh, KD, give us some insight into how you've been navigating who she is through this time.
That's a great question, Trey. It changed. I look at the pandemic as in 4 quarters because we're only, we're 4 years into it, right? We don't really know what this will all look like in 10 years from now. Year one, I was a crisis manager for most major crises you saw in this state. I was either leading it, behind it, hiding in the background of it, or being in front of it. There were so many crises, and I had to lead. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't rest like everybody else. I was not resting. Everybody gave credit to the grocery store workers, but what about the communicators? We were working. We were working about 80 hours a week. We were busy. We were tired. And that was part of what I had to do in 2020. 2021, as Ashley mentioned, I did feel that exhaustion kicked in. I had young babies, one baby with sickle cell, and that was the last major crisis we had in 2020 because of the fact that we went in with her health. And not just her health, but many of the over 2,000 people who live on this side of Washington and living with sickle cell. And so I went into my genius. I went into creating. I probably created about 15 different types of films during that time, not by myself, but with young people, because I needed that motivation through young people. We documented George Floyd's death. And so 2020, 2021, I was busy. And then I decided to take a break, and I bought a house in Florida, and I just left because y'all were indoors and I needed the sun. So we went outside in Florida for a whole year. And when I look back at that, that was our vacation. We took a 1 year vacation down in Florida, and that was one of the best things I could have done for myself. I needed to pull away from being there for everybody and every organization that needed me, that just wanted me, not my team. They wanted me. And when I was getting calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning from senators and former governors, like, I need this, I'm thinking about doing this to myself, it was exhausting. It was so exhausting. So when I left, it felt so good to be able to center myself, center my family, and be around Black people, a lot of Black people. It was so many Black people down there in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was fun. But the thing that I missed the most was Seattle. I love Seattle. And so, after a year, we came back. And then when I came back, I refused to be everything to everybody. I took a break from everything, and I'm able to fully embrace the legacy woman that I am. We talked about this last week. People would, sometimes friends in particular, they know I go by KD, and they will still call me Keela publicly. And I start chin checking people. I did. I started chin checking people like, no, my name's KD. That's what you call me. That's my brand. And that's what I need you to call me. And so that's just a part of me leaning into who I am as a woman, because I got 2 babies, and I got over 1,000 daughters, but I got 2 babies that I gave birth to, and I got to show them who they are. And I leaned into neurodivergence. There's so many of these new kids living with neurodivergence, including my baby, And so I really leaned into that. I think I became a more well-rounded woman in this pandemic. I became more truthful to myself. I suffered a really bad miscarriage last year. It was so devastating. It took 5 months for that miscarriage to go through. That hurt me so bad. It hurt me deeply, more than what anybody would know. That baby wasn't just for us. That was my daughter's cure for sickle cell. And so I allowed myself to grieve, and I allowed myself to grieve all of 2023. And, I'm happy. I mean, this part of it now, where we are in 2024, I was able to sue King County Lightberry System. I was able to settle with them, and I walked away with my dignity, my integrity, and the woman that I am. And I walked away with a little bit of change. And we can talk about that. In the state of Washington, there's a no silencing act. And so I lean more into the laws and making sure that not just me, but that everybody understands the laws that we live under. And I'm so grateful, Trey, to be back in my bag, back in my business, and back in my family. And, I don't know what next year is going to look like, but I tell you this year, I'm leaning into being this legacy woman that I always have been. If you come to me incorrect, I'm going to come back to you incorrect. You know what I mean? And that's something in the past I would bite my tongue. I would let people, groups and cliques say little things, being a little shady and stuff. But at this point, I don't care who you are. You respect me, I give you respect back tenfold. You love me, I'm going to give you love back tenfold. You shady, I'm not going to be shady with you because I can't go that low. But I will check you and let you know how shady that you are, and I'll be done with you. And that's what it is. And I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud to not be a people pleaser this year. I'm so proud to say I'm canceling everything and I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to sit on my couch. I'm going to let my body rest. I've never been able to do that in 41 years. And I'm proud of myself. And that's where I'm at. I don't know what next year going to look like, but that's where I'm at this year.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much, KD. Wow. Malika, I mean, this is a very packed question, right? It's deep. Tell us how you dealt with all of this and keeping the embodiment of she is.
I just want to say gratitude to all the people that spoke before me. Thank you for sharing. And I really do like the way of packaging the last 4 years. As as a person who has COVID right now, we're still in this. We still have the pandemic is still a thing. And especially for our communities. Um, Throughout, I also think of the way she is operated regarding myself during that time was what I did as an individual, and then also what was happening for me professionally during that time. And personally, with the pandemic and also with the uprising, engaging in mutual aid. As a person who lives outside of Seattle King County, we are a smaller population, but we are still very disproportionately represented in the negative impacts of societal racism. So in homelessness, in access to healthcare, and health disparities. And so through mutual aid, that was something that was very important to me. Everything shut down. People didn't have access to food. People didn't have access to healthcare. People didn't have access to information about vaccines. They didn't, if they wanted them, they didn't have access to vaccines. And Black and brown people and Black women especially didn't have access to those things in my community. So we organized, we started making meals, we started organizing with people that were in the encampments, and we would drop off food to the encampments through scheduled times, and we would count how many people wanted access to food. And we cooked all of these things in our own kitchens, and we packaged them up and we took them out into the community. I also started organizing with the next iteration of a group that I helped start called Full Circle United. But the next iteration was called Black Leaders for Action and Solidarity, Thurston County. And we came together to support the Black student unions that couldn't even have safe space within their virtual meeting rooms. They were being attacked, the youth. And these were predominantly groups of young Black women that were being targeted with cruel racial epithets. And so putting together care and support, Black Leaders for Action and Solidarity Thurston County was also predominantly women-led and LGBTQIA plus community-led. And we came around, it circled around in protection of each other in this community. We created safe outdoor community events for our youth to be able to engage in. We also, and through the buprenorphine clinic that I helped start in my community that served multiple counties, and people of color, Black people especially, are gravely underrepresented in their access to medication assisted treatment. And we never shut our doors throughout all of the pandemic. We figured out safety plans to make sure that we were able to, and we did not shorten our hours either. All of our providers operated outside, whether it was rain, wind, sleet, snow, hail. And personally, I helped start Transforming Our Communities, which is a conference that is hosted by the Alcohol and Drug Addictions Institute at the University of Washington. We made sure to uplift the voices of Black women in that conference it is still going on to this day. We moved it online, but I went out and did outreach and found people to be able to speak to the intersections of racist violence and white supremacist violence, as well as how it also impacts people that use drugs. Like, that is one of the things that we oftentimes don't talk about, is that part of the reason that George Floyd and Manuel Ellis were targeted was because they were people that use drugs. And those are just the incidents that we see. We don't talk about the layers and the intersections of violence and vulnerability that Black women who use drugs experience in our communities and in our society. And so using that as an opportunity to uplift awareness around that. I also did outreach in the community to find the Black elders that wanted access to vaccines. I did education with them. I got them signed up into the list. We did, it was pretty abysmal in this country, the way that we were rolled out access to vaccinations for folks that wanted them. Why were we sitting on, anyway, we won't go into all that. But professionally, I helped co-design, co-lead, which was the law enforcement assisted diversion, Let Everyone Advance with Dignity. That's when we got a different name, Let Everyone Advance with Dignity. And we worked with community members that didn't want to engage with law enforcement, but they wanted folks that were still left to languish on the streets, that were experiencing behavioral health issues and substance use, to have access to the wraparound case management services. And shout out to all those case managers that stayed out in the streets working with people when cops weren't getting out their cars. And also I helped co-design a housing model that would work for people with that had typically been the folks that were targeted by the Let Everyone Advance with Dignity. So making sure that they were able to get wraparound case management services as well as housing. And then Vocal Washington went in and did community building and support, because we all know the level of isolation that people experienced during COVID exacerbated our already abysmal overdose death rate. And so having community building was crucial during that time. And so we were out in the field doing that as well. Blast in Thurston County, we also were advocating, because as the capital, this is the place where everybody came down to do their, they were in our streets. We had armed white supremacists in our streets, on our buildings. Building owners were like, get off my building. They're like, no, I'm here supporting you. I'm keeping you safe. We were organizing safe rides for Black people and Black women in our community to be able to help them get to and from work if they needed to. I mean, this was all very personal to me as a Black woman and as the mother of two Black female children at that time. So like this, she is somebody who fights for hers. And then, and on a national level, the harm reduction community, we are always the people that walk towards something when other people are walking away from it. And so we said, how do we use this vacuum that's occurring with services or lack thereof? This is where we shine. We figure stuff out. We stand on the shoulders of Imani Woods from Seattle, Washington. A harm reduction pioneer, was at the original table when that name was developed. Street outreach services. Marilyn Reyes, Janet Ector, when I'm talking about the Black women, these are the shoulders that's who she is. The women in these movements that, have been there from the beginning and their names don't often get said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is when I talk about she is, organizing around in 2021 when the Blake decision happened and and our simple possession statute was found to be unconstitutional. We leaned in, and also when fentanyl came onto the scene, when in our drug supply, Vocal Washington, we convened the Overdose Emergency Innovative Recovery Work Group, which was everybody from people that use drugs to state level policymakers, city level policymakers, commissioners, and came together to develop a plan on how to address overdose. Um, you know, to me, it's about, we organize and we get active and we fight back. And I will also say in 2021, I had a kind of a crash and burn at the end of the year, but we didn't quit. And the end of 2023 and going into 2024 has been the time when I've been like, okay, I need to slow my roll a little bit. But and recognizing that it's okay to decide to do that, and that sometimes it's prudent and wise to go deep instead of wide. All of these issues are going to, we're under attack in so many different ways right now. And getting quiet is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Malika. That really kind of leads into my next question here, because we know there's a lot of disparities that were exacerbated by the pandemic. And so I'm going to come to you, Jalen, about maybe some of the ways that you utilized your energy to maybe do different initiatives or projects during the pandemic that allowed for, you and your brilliance to shine a light on some ways to handle some of those exacerbated disparities in certain communities.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about just our organization briefly and what we engaged in during the pandemic Lavender Rights Project. We worked really hard, like most organizations at the time, to do mutual aid for our communities, and noticing patterns of healthcare disparities and not being able to meet rent, and just an increase of of losing housing. And the same people were coming back to us for many different needs. And so we all got together and innovated a few programs. So the Guaranteed Income Program, working for a guaranteed income in Washington State and in Seattle, also providing a guaranteed income for Black trans women and Black trans people in the state of Washington. We also it worked really closely with King County to ensure housing security for trans community, and really trans exclusive or trans focused housing. What we were noticing is particularly a lack of access to shelters, a lack of access to housing services for trans women that were competent and affirming. And especially because of the pandemic and the increased rates of violence, increased evictions, and loss of housing, or at least the evictions towards the end of the pandemic, it became very clear that we needed a solution, particularly for our community. And so that involved a little bit of training with some counties and other jurisdiction, but it also involved the county committing to a housing facility that will be in Capitol Hill, opening at the beginning of 2025. And it's a small project, right? It's a small project, maybe 35 folk that it will house. And our services, of course, will be specialized on Black folks, queer folks, trans people. But I think it is monumental in that you have this government agency naming, almost for the first time, and it's one of the few in the country, saying that this is actually important, that the outcomes for Black trans people are dismal across the country, and we want to actually be one of the first in the country to do something about it, and specifically specifically put money behind it, put project support behind it, and put support for organizations that are of, by, for leadership in trans community to come up with a solution. So I'm excited about the project opening, but more the model. And it's a model of working with LGBTQ community and government agencies to come up with solutions facing our particular trans community.
Yeah, that's really special. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. KD, when we think about some of the work that you may have been able to do, we're talking about a lot of, we saw it. I mean, COVID hit certain communities harder than others. Tell us some of the work that y'all were doing in that regard.
With the foundation, I would say our Girls on the Rise program kicked off in the pandemic. OSPI gave out some funding for us to be able to help with attendance during that time. And it was actually a very beautiful time for the foundation. We were able to start a cohort of girls in Nigeria, and the Nigerian girls were able to work with our American girls. And what we did is we did a lot of films. We were actually a recipient for OSPI to teach other CBOs how to storytell and how to put that youth voice in the front, not always having the founder talk and let those kids get out there and talk about their programs. I was very proud of that, Trey. And I want to say I got closer with you in the pandemic as well, right? Because we were on the same side of a lot of that work. And, you know, I'm really grateful for the pandemic because one thing it did teach me how to do is to say no. It did take 2 years for me to learn how to say no, because once again, that people pleasing thing is hard to break out of, right? And then so that achievement too, with ADHD, I'm an achiever. I like to achieve. And what I found is that a lot of our girls have ADHD as well. And sometimes people think you're trying to show off, but it's like, this ain't really got nothing to do with y'all. If I don't do this, I'm going to go crazy. I have to do 12 different things at once, right? But I was able to learn about my ADHD and teach these girls how to learn about the different things that they had. It's not disabilities, actually, it's a superpower. And I learned how to use my ADHD in a way where I wasn't letting people use me. You know what I mean? I was learning how to use it for myself. And so I think that, you know, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if Girls on the Rise will be here, because we got that money from OSPI. And I don't think that we would have necessarily been thinking about Nigeria, right? But when we got that money in, we were able to pay those girls in Nigeria, pay their families. And our $1 is so much more money over there. You know what I mean? And so I was grateful. I think I was able to heal a part of the younger version of Keela, right? Because I was Keela back then. I was able to heal parts of her. I was able to heal that high schooler, that overachiever, and learn how to use it as superpower. And so when I say I learned from the girls, I really mean that, because I was learning through how they were working. Trey, you know, I'm grateful. I think my relationships got deeper. You know, Deontay became from like being on a board to becoming a brother. You know what I mean? Like in real life. It just, the pandemic was so good. I'm talking about the good sides of it. I mean, yes, we lost people. People died. People passed away. I had an aunt that died. I never had COVID, by the way. So Malika, you might want to come give it to me, sis. I still haven't had it, allegedly, but I learned a lot about how to work with ADHD and how to work with neurodivergence. And then that's how I found out that my daughter had a neurodiversion with sensory. And then all the girls in my groups, they were like, yeah, I got this too. And so we started just being able to work with those girls and teaching them how to work with their superpowers.
Yeah, beautiful. Christina, when we think about some of the ways that maybe you were able to adjust or, you know, provide your expertise in other areas during this time, tell us more.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Trey. Because I learned, and I've been talking about this over the past 2 weeks, that I learned what lit me up. I think going into the pandemic, I was taking on a lot, right? And I always say, sometimes we think that meaningful work, all meaningful work is hard, and that if it's not hard, it's not meaningful. And I learned that lesson over the course of the pandemic. I recognize that I don't have to be exhausted to do this work with joy, right? There's a balance that I could create. So with that and recognizing that, let me just give you a real quick snapshot. started out 2020 pandemic started, I was a political consultant still at that time. I was doing political consulting, working with candidates of color that were running for office and helping them win. And in the midst of COVID, one started working on a great project where Malika, that's where I met Malika, where we were advocating for changes to our state laws on how folks are supported when they are experiencing a substance use disorder. All the while that's going on, I'm doing political consulting and then recognizing with other folks that I'm talking to, like Safriana Day, an amazing Black woman who's a political consultant, like Crystal Fincher, another amazing Black woman who's a political consultant, that, oh shoot, we're not having access to the same level of contracts as other political consultants. So what did we do alongside our amazing peers, male peers that were in the same space? We advocated, we took it to the press, and that created a whole new world of opportunity for me. And I say that because it helped me recognize that my joy is serving my people, like period. It's serving my people. And so after that, Christian and I were working on a project, Black and Healthy Pierce County, right? That brought us joy. After that, we worked on a project with Washington State Department of Health, A Mindful State, which was really amplifying the experiences of folks across the state and recognizing, like, look, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to verbalize that. And our communities of color, our Black communities, we've already been taking care of ourselves, right? We've already been taking care of ourselves informally. So how can we amplify how we've already been taking care of ourselves, right? Because the pandemic hit, right? But this wasn't our first time in experiencing disparities, being hit with injustice all at the same time, right? My husband and I talk about how the crack epidemic impacted our communities, right? And all of the things, right? So this wasn't the first time for us, right? This was all right. We're back at it again. And how are we going to navigate through it? And what I love to highlight in all of that is that's how Elevate Black Wellness was born, because of I'm going to take a step out on faith and work with our Pierce County Department of Health and do Black and Healthy Pierce County. Ooh, you know what? I don't know if I can get this contract with the Washington State Department of Health, but let me showcase my body of work. Oh, and I got a Mindful State. And then when we saw that the Washington State Department of Health was offering dollars to really invest in community, and the focus that initially was, we want to focus on vaccine coordination, all of those pieces, we stayed in our truth and we said that's not where the conversation ends for us. So we're not only going to talk about vaccines, we're going to talk about wellness. We're going to have, going back to what Keith shared, we're going to have a more holistic conversation about how to care for our community so that when we leave, when this project is over, when the dollars run out, we've made an impact that wasn't only connected to folks getting vaccinated, but really transform the lives of the folks that we want to serve, which is our folks. That's what these dollars were for. So it is an honor to have this conversation, to be part of this conversation, to be in community with these outstanding women who continue to show who she is. And the last thing I want to say is two things. So the other piece is, not only did I join and start initiatives, work on initiatives, but it was important to join them too, right? We don't always have to be in the driving seat, but it's important for us to support our sisters who are already driving, right? And so that was a big piece. And so I joined several communities. But one thing I want to close out on is there's a quote by Pinky Cole, Black woman from Atlanta who owns a business called Slutty Vegan. I went to a conference last year and she said, look, I'm evolving every single minute. Who you met a minute ago is not who I met now. Who you met, who you're meeting now. So I say all that to say, with this conversation, who she is, who Christina was at the beginning of this conversation is no longer the same Christina after this conversation, because each one of you are portals into different worlds that many of us might not have access to. So I learn, I receive, I appreciate and honor each one of you on this call.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. And lastly, we're going to hear from Ashley McGurta Dare on this. You know, mental health was a huge I mean, I feel like a lot of people started to really recognize it during the pandemic, Ashley. So tell us a bit about how you were able to bring your brilliance to those who were in need at this time.
Yeah, so the pandemic was an interesting time. We're still in it, and it'll be interesting to really see the ramifications of what COVID-19 has actually done to us from a psychological standpoint. I was watching a documentary called Katrina Babies, and it really looked at the mental health of those who were born during the time that Hurricane Katrina hit. And then they were really looking at their brain, and I'm thinking, okay, this same thing happened to COVID babies. So are we going to see the same developments when it comes to brain and just development that we've seen with the Katrina babies when it comes to the COVID babies? And so really looking at this time, you know, I've been practicing therapy for over a decade. I've been doing this work. I've been advocating for social justice, having conversations around race, anti-racism, and all of these things. And when the pandemic hit and everything that was going on with George Floyd, a lot of people kept coming to me and asking, well, what could we do to help Black people during this time? And I had always been saying, screaming from the mountaintops, well, we could pay for Black people to get free therapy, because no one ever sat Black people down after slavery ended, after Jim Crow happened, after we literally watched our brothers and sisters be killed and lynched and sold off and all of these horrific things. There was never any type of group therapy or collective healing. And then when we really look at who therapy was for and what happened to our communities when we did receive therapy. So that's why it's really important in my work to decolonize therapeutic practices, because there's been so much harm done, whether it's been overdiagnosing, misdiagnosing. We know that Black men are disproportionately diagnosed with schizophrenia, and they'll have the same signs and symptoms of a white male, but the white male will be diagnosed with bipolar. So a lot of these conversations were coming to the forefront. Everyone was talking about racial trauma, which never was announced before. The APA, the American Psychological Association, actually apologized for their part in the process and then acknowledged that there is actually psychological impacts of racism on our mental health. And it's like, yes, we've been saying this forever. This is why the ABPSI, the Black Psychological Association, the Asian Psycho, all these different branches had to be created, because I say the dominant in quotations, who's creating all of these systems did not want to recognize, or when they did, it was in a harmful way. But what we really saw was just an exacerbated amount of the disparities that have always been around, like Christina shared. This isn't anything new. We dealt with the crack epidemic. We've been dealing with racism. But what we saw was disproportionate amounts of Black people having economic instability, healthcare access and outcomes, our mental health, caregiving responsibilities. You know, Black people were disproportionately on the front lines. We had to go out and do all of these things, and we grieved so much. And oftentimes people don't understand grief until you experience grief, until you've lost something. And in the pandemic, we all lost something, even if it was just gyms being closed, not being able to go to the movie theater. So people actually began to understand what that was, and they could see it. And when I'm having conversations about mental health and mental illness, if someone hasn't experienced it, it's very difficult for them to actually process it. And I think collectively, we all experienced grief, we all experienced loss, and people were like, okay, maybe this mental health thing is actually real, which it is. We all have mental health. And it's like, okay, we're seeing how it can be debilitating, how it can actually impact our day-to-day lives. And so what happened? A lot of people were reaching out for clinicians, especially the Black community, especially millennials by the drove. And me being a millennial therapist, there's what, 10 of us in Washington State? I know them all. There's very few of us doing this work. So what does that mean if there's 10 clinicians? And I'm being dramatic, but there's literally 4% Black clinicians in the entire United States. So that's not enough for us to go all around. And then when you're looking at, well, does this clinician take my insurance? Most Black clinicians and clinicians of color don't work with insurance, low reimbursement rates, all the paperwork. So what I was seeing was people finally getting to a point to where I want to get help, but I can't afford help. I need the help. I can't find somebody who looks like me, who understands my culture, who's not going to misdiagnose me. And when they found them, it's like, okay, I finally got through it. I can find it. But guess what? They're $200 an hour. They're $300 an hour. And then I turn on the news. I'm watching CNN. I'm seeing Cuomo calling on all the therapists to volunteer and work for free. And I'm like, well, who's going to pay these my $100,000 student loans? Because shout out to Clark Atlanta. Pinky Cole was mentioned earlier. I went to Clark. I also went to the University of Washington, Harvard. These institutions are not cheap. And so you want us to then work for free, which I would do, and I do this work for free. I give back because I believe service is the rent we pay to live on this earth, but I also have bills to pay. And so I actually got pretty upset, and I'm like, okay, you're calling on therapists out of all the professions for us to volunteer our time in the middle of a global pandemic and work for free? And I'm just like, this isn't okay. There's got to be a way. Therapists cannot be responsible to fix social problems. You know, I can't talk you out of homelessness. How can I talk you out of racism? What I'm doing is I'm giving you coping skills to handle these systemic issues that aren't for us to do. But it was really upsetting when I was seeing that, and I'm like, okay, let's find a way for community members to get free therapy and for clinicians to be paid a market level rate. I'm not talking about reimbursing us $15, $30. Absolutely not. You're going to reimburse us for the hard work and the education that we've put in to do this work, because I had to do over 4,000 clinical hours to be licensed by the state of Washington. California wanted a whole nother thing, because I'm licensed there too. Let's not just talk about the licensing process and how it's rooted in white supremacy and all of these barriers that were impacting our communities. And so as I'm going out during the pandemic, more and more people are calling me, because guess what? I'm the one Black therapist they can get a hold of, and they want to have these conversations now about mental health and race. So they're going to get a Black person to talk about it. And I'm like, cool, pay me. You know, I'm getting paid great money. So the pandemic, I probably made some of the most money I've ever made. And it was interesting. And I have to look at that. I'm like, look at the amount of money that I've accumulated by going in and having these conversations, because I'm not going to talk to you about race if you're not going to pay me. We're going to start right there. But it was interesting. And so they're like, we want to help the Black community. And I'm like, okay, pay for them to get free therapy, because guess what? I got 100 emails right now from people in my community who can't afford me. And my rates at the time were extremely low for a therapist of my caliber, not to be egotistical or anything, but I've been in Forbes, I've done the work. I've been doing this for over a decade. My research is literally in ProQuest, JSTOR, all of these things, and there's limited amounts of research. And I was taught by the best. Dr. Joy DeGruy, Dr. Beverly Tatum, the individuals in the community who really set the tone for us to decolonize this work. You know, I'm inspired. It's Women's History Month. We got to really honor and celebrate and talk about Dr. Mamie Phipps Clark, who was the very first African-American psychologist. I would not be able to do this work without the pioneers like Dr. Phipps Clark. And so during one of those presentations, this white man, he sent me $10,000 and he was like, use this for your Black clients to receive free therapy. And I shared about it on Facebook, LinkedIn. I have a very huge LinkedIn platform. I was the LinkedIn top mental health voice the past couple of years in a row. And so a lot of people were like, I want to contribute. I also want to help Black people. So we made a GoFundMe. The GoFundMe made about $100,000 in 24 hours. Seattle Storm, I really appreciate Seattle Storm, because they were the very first organization who saw value in the mental health of Black people. And they were like, we want to honor you. We want to honor the work that you're doing. And we want to contribute $30,000 to this free therapy fund. We typically only work with nonprofits. So we're trying to find a way to give you this money when you're not a nonprofit. This is a GoFundMe. So again, going back to social media and the community, and I share this story because the community really rallied behind the Therapy Fund Foundation. And they were like, if this needs to be a nonprofit. I'd worked for nonprofits. I worked for Providence Hospice. I just told y'all how I did hospice therapy for years, but I didn't really know what it meant to start one. So I reached out to my girl, Keela. I knew that she had a nonprofit. And I'm like, how do you actually start this? She connected me with Monica from Queen Care. This was May 2020. We became an official nonprofit August 2020. We've raised over $1 million. We've been able to fund over 2,000 free therapy sessions. Our goal is to fund 10 million Black people across the world globally with free therapy. And you know, the pandemic was very interesting. I got married. You were there, and I had a destination wedding in the middle of the pandemic, just doing too much. But it was beautiful. And I also share this story because my husband got sick from COVID before we got married and almost died. So in the middle of planning a wedding, we had to plan his funeral. He literally had to record a goodbye message to his sons. And you know, he had lost 70 pounds, all of these things. It was just a devastating amount of time. He took a significant amount of time off from work while he was hospitalized. Like, I got people calling, are we still going to the wedding? And I'm just immensely stressed. I had to stop seeing all of my therapy clients. People didn't understand what was going on, and I was trained from a Western psychology institution where it's like, you don't talk about your own problems. You don't tell your clients what's going on with you. And so that was so ingrained. I didn't have open conversations with them. And I just kind of was like, listen, you know, I'm gonna refer you out. And they were so close. It was like, no, you're the only therapist who can work with me. And it was a very difficult time for me because I'm like, do I share what's going on with my family? It's been 11 years of the school system saying, don't tell your clients your problem, don't cry in session, don't open up, don't be vulnerable. You're there for them. You're not there to pour out what's going on. And now in hindsight, I wish I would have shared a little bit more, because also during that time, the media is reaching out. I'm on TV, I'm on Oprah, I'm on all these different networks, and people don't realize it says live, but it's not live. So then my clients are seeing me seemingly on live, and it's like, you're canceling my sessions, but they don't know my husband's in the hospital, literally fighting for his life. And so we're blessed to be in a financial situation to where we had savings, and that my husband could take all that time off. He used his sick, he used his PTO time. But for other individuals, especially Black people, you know, having a month off of work, that's literally the difference between being housed and unhoused. So I definitely recognize our privilege and having a healthy savings. And so that's why I really have conversations with Black community about just building wealth and investing in real estate and savings and all of these different things, because you never know when something will hit home. And so it could have gone really, really bad for us. And it was twofold. It was so many things happening all at once. You know, I'm getting all these speaking engagements, I'm getting lots of clients, trying to manage the load while also building a foundation. Didn't know what that looked like, didn't have the blueprint. I'm looking to Keela. Keela is the blueprint. So I'm going to her, I'm calling her, not even necessarily understanding all the things that's going on in her own life, but I really value the community. Deontay, who stepped up to become vice president and really just support us through this journey as we're, you know, looking at the barriers in the community. We got hit with a lot of gun violence. Guess what? Who did people turn to? They turned to the Therapy Fund Foundation to come. I did so many vigils with community passageways and so many different murders. I remember I was at community passageways and literally the next day someone was there and was shot in the very seat that I sat, having a conversation with community about ways we can manage our anger and emotional intelligence so that we don't have to use it through the barrel of a gun. And literally the next day, someone came and shot another person. And so I do this work really to deter individuals from that, to decrease the amount of suicide, because suicide is literally killing Black communities. And we often like to pass it off like that's a white people thing or whatever the case. But the beauty in the pandemic is that people are recognizing, hey, Me Too, the Me Too movement, all of these different things, but this impacts everyone. No one is exempt. And so it was there's beauty in it, and the fact that we were able to build such a great organization and we're still growing. And everyone wanted to put money into the Black community, and everyone blacked out their social medias, and now we're kind of going back to business as normal. And I'm seeing a lot of the funders that were there, it's like, oh yeah, we gave you that one-off funding, you're good. So it's been an interesting journey to see who's there and who's still in the thick of it and who's still advocating for Black lives and for Black mental health, and so that we can actually improve our finances, improve our overall well-being, and really just experience the joy that has been stolen from us through legacies, through centuries. And I find it really important to just laugh and smile and have a good time, because the world is on fire and we're all here for a short amount of time. And I want to enjoy this time that I'm here. And I also want to ensure that I am setting up communities so that they can have what we didn't have before. My grandmother died at 62 years of age. She was extremely stressed out. You guys probably can't see it because I got this faux background, but she was taking care of me and my sister because, the 80s crack epidemic, my mother was not able to care for us, and she was extremely stressed out. And I often wonder if she'd gone to therapy or if she had some support, would she still be here today? But no, she literally drank herself to death because that was her coping mechanism. You would always see her with a red cup, Coke 45, whatever. And that was strategically put into Black communities to kill us. And I know I'm going, but
No,
yeah.
but your points are I want to thank all of y'all. I mean, this has been such a phenomenal conversation. To understand not only who she is, but who she continues to be in the face of adversity, challenge, difficulty. Like, keeping our foundation is so key. And so I just want to thank all of y'all for sharing such personal stories and anecdotes about how you continue to uphold who she is. And with that, I'll pass it right over to Christian Bell. Thank you all.
Can I ask a brief question before we pass it to Christian? Sorry, this is impromptu. Trey, can you give us a definition of who she is in your eyes? There's so much work that you've done and so much groundbreaking work that you have. You are such a community builder. When people think of Legoland, I think of that as being your legacy, right? No, really, real stuff, right? So even though you're facilitating this, you're so much a part of this conversation. Can you give us a little bit of a call?
Thank you for that, Deontay. And really, I'm blessed to be here. But you're right. When we talk about folks who wear multiple hats, I realize that there's so much that needs to be done. How do you say no? And so part of my reason why is I'm raising 2 Black sons. They're going to be Black men in this world, and I'm always driven by how am I utilizing my energy to make sure that they have a better world, right? That they are able to get into adulthood and be confident in who they are and not have to justify for anyone how they show up, but that they get to show up as their authentic selves. And so it's something I have to model, right? I have to exemplify that for them, because in every space I'm authentically me. But yes, I, work with Converge Media, doing my TV show and producing it and hosting it. And that is my love. And I'm grateful that the state of Washington, Dr. J brought me on board of the Office of Equity, the first ever Office of Equity at the state level. And I'm the communications director. And people go, whoa, you're wearing a director hat now up in state government and da da da. And that's a big job because I have a big team and I gotta make sure that we are doing the work. But then I'm also a part of the covenant, a founding member of the covenant, and where we are out here trying to make sure that we can pass on these 17 principles as we statements that solidify how we move in community so we can elevate our collective consciousness and really reduce the tragic impacts that we experience from gun violence, but it starts in the mind. So I really appreciate you for bringing me into the discussion in that way, because as everyone was talking, I was just snapping, snapping in the Z formation over here, because not only do I respect all of these amazing women on the panel, but I also really understand that there's so much that we carry when we talk about who she is. It is who she's always been, right? She's always been a founding mother, the nurturer, the caregiver, the one who is the one that you can come on to, you can pour yourself into, you can find that resolve, you can find some sense of self when you are lost. It is she who brings forth the balance. And so I'm grateful because all of you shared how you're bringing that balance. And to me, that me upholding that, me communicating in a way that allows myself and my personal energy to contribute to that, that's who she is. That's exactly who she is. So thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit of my own personal who she is for me. Thank you.
Wow. I need a minute to process. My team knows I get like super emotional on these calls. But I just want to thank our wonderful, wonderful panelists so much for sharing their perspectives, their stories, being vulnerable in this space, and just having this wonderful conversation today. I am so, so very appreciative of each and every one of you. So thank you. Um, we are now going to transition into some resources. And so we have some awesome resources to share with you all today. And then I think I noted this in the chat, but this session is recorded. And so we'll go ahead and email this out following. Our first resource is our respiratory viruses. So please know that the pandemic is over, but COVID-19, flu, RSV are still here. And so our Elevate Black Wellness initiative really encourages our community members to protect yourself and your community. And you can do this by staying up to date on your vaccines, by washing your hands, covering your coughs and sneezes, and staying home if you're sick. The other key piece that we're really pushing to encourage you all to do today is you can visit our website, elevateblackwellness.com, to learn more about respiratory viruses. We do have an article that we've worked on in partnership with the Washington State Department of Health. You can also check out your local health department or directly on the Washington State Department of Health's updated guidance. And so we have the link for that updated guidance provided, and we'll drop it in the chat, but we'll also share it with you all via email. The next resource that we'd like to share with you all today is our Elevate Black Wellness Health Resources page. I'm so excited to talk about this exciting page that we've developed. So our Elevate Black Wellness Health Resource page is your go-to destination for resources that will enlighten, that inspire, and empower our communities. And so we have 3 tabs on this page. The first tab is our health information and fact sheets. And in this health information and fact sheets, you can find downloadable and printable assets, as well as links to different resources that improve your wellness. So we do have, you will see here, a long COVID asset that you can download. We have social media versions as well as a PDF version. You can learn more about what long COVID is, what are the symptoms, and where are some resources. We also have on that page links to the vaccine locator, links to where you can find those kiosks. So there is new kiosks that have COVID-19 and flu tests, as well as some other really helpful things and kiosks that are being launched across the state. So you can learn more about that, where they are, at our health information and fact sheets page. The other tab that we have on our website is our Elevate Black Wellness TV. And so here you'll see our community spotlight with the wonderful Jacqueline Smith Armstrong from the Africatown Community Land Trust. And we had a fantastic conversation. And so on our Elevate Black Wellness TV, you can find those community spotlights. We did a series of interviews with incredible Black community members last year that we're showcasing on that page, as well as just some other folks that are working with us on the Elevate Black Wellness Initiative. And definitely encourage you to see that there. The last segment that we have on our health resources page is our blogs and stories page. So we have a variety of different articles on different topics related to health. And then also that's a place that you can go to get some updates. So we'll be dropping that link in the chat. There's also a QR code here if you'd like to scan it, just to get yourself acclimated to our health resources page. I'm now going to transition over to the fabulous Malika Lamont, who will be leading us through an affirmation exercise. So thank you so much, Malika.
Thank you, Christian. I would like to invite everyone into a centering process. We're going to use the 4-7-8 breathing technique. This breathing pattern helps to reduce anxiety. It helps to center you. And, in a time where we don't often have a lot of control over the circumstances of events that may be happening around us, when we can engage in coping mechanisms that help to decompress our bodies, our breathing is something that we do have some control over. This practice is called pranayama, and it is common as a part of yoga. Inhale with me for 4 seconds through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath for 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exhale for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have the power to accomplish my goals. I face challenges with resilience. Act with courage and confidence. I am capable and worthy of success as I define it. I give myself permission for my strength to show up in a number of ways, including gentleness with self and others. My emotions are worthy of validation. I am worthy of love. I love myself. I am resilient. I am mutually accountable to myself, my family, and community. I am committed to being my best self. I can change my thoughts. I can be a woman in whatever way I choose to be. I am proud of the woman I am becoming. And let us center ourselves one more time, breathing in through our nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding it for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhaling through our mouths for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you, everyone.
Well, it has come to the close of our program. So again, let's keep this conversation going. We want to hear from you, and please complete our survey. We love to learn from you how we can elevate Black wellness. And we encourage you to utilize the link and also this QR code to complete our survey. We'll now transition into some music, and I'll turn it over to Elise for that. Feel free to join us in the song, dance along, or just listen with us as you're completing that survey, or stay on the call if needed.
Thank you all for coming today. Have a good day.
Yes, thank you all so much.